Gibson Hunter is with us today. How you doing, Graeme?
Good there, Matt. Nice to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, man. Good to be here in your beautiful space you have.
Yeah.
You're a professional musician, been one for many years. You are a music teacher.
Yeah.
And many other things. Good to see you, man.
Yes, man. Indeed. Thank you.
How have you been?
Last few weeks I've been really good. Yeah. The last 3 weeks I've been making a few changes, and things seem good.
So we wanted to we come out here to your beautiful place today and chat a bit about your story. I actually took a few guitar lessons from you a few years ago now, like 4 or 5 years, and you had told me bits and pieces of your story then, and we actually we had a conversation one time at a Chinese restaurant, and that stuck with me. He told me a little bit about like your story with mental health and sort of some of the things you've been through, and I could tell that you have a lot of stories to share. So just want to say thanks for being here, and I look forward to chatting a bit about your story and things you've been through and your experiences.
Right on. Where do you want to start?
Where did mental health really start for you?
Well, I think I was mentally unhealthy for so many years, just being young on Ritalin from the time I was 6. Not having a clue that Ritalin was this speed manufactured drug meant to keep disorderly, hyperactive children, which I'm not sure if I was even diagnosed properly, but sort of, so you could sit there at school all day and try to absorb what they were trying to teach you, which being on that drug, Ritalin, my mind was elsewhere all the time, so I had no idea how I even got through school. I was like always anxietized about being as smart as my peers, couldn't sleep at night, fell into a depression every day after the Ritalin wore off, after supper. Nighttime you were left not being able to sleep, crazy night terror dreams that I would never remember, but I'd hear about from my parents. And then not being able to get up for school. I was late for school every day. Always arrived at school, always walked to school on my own, and always arrived after the opening exercises. Just a struggle to get up every day. And then hearing my father, he'd be up at 5:30 in the morning, leaving for work before 6:30, and then getting home later by a couple hours than I did after I got home from school. And I thought, man, is this what I'm going to have to do when I grow up? I can barely get up for school. I got to do this. And I ended up actually doing what he did.
Really?
At Ford for 8 years. I did the same gig as my dad. And I remember saying to my dad, because we used to drive together after a shift. It was the afternoon shift. The afternoon shift went from 6:30 at night till 5 in the morning. Imagine calling that an afternoon shift. And you did that for 2 weeks. And then you did days from 7 in the morning till 5.
Afternoon shift. That's that's a graveyard shift.
Yeah, like from 6:30 till 5 in the morning. Anyways, I remember after walking home the line, the old man's there, and I looked at my dad and I just said, "Hey, Dad." I was sort of saying it facetiously. I said, "I forgive you for being an asshole." I said, "This place will turn anybody into an asshole," and he just laughed at me too. But it was kind of true,
Yeah, right.
It was amazing what people do. It's almost like slavery is alive and well in our society. They just paying you for it, I mean, it can't be considered slavery because you're not forced to go, but you are, because you got to make the buck. You got to put the food on the table. So, hey, you got to go to work. And there's nothing wrong with going to work. But the fact is, these jobs, these horrible jobs, they burn people out and they're not good for them.
Yeah.
So think about that when you buy a car.
Yeah.
Somebody worked their ass off.
Someone worked
piece of junk you're driving.
Yeah. So the Ritalin, that started, you said you were 6 when that started?
6 till I was 11. And then when they took me off it, they just said, "Oh, you don't need Ritalin anymore." So it was like, didn't tell you about the fact that there's going to be withdrawals and you're going to go, I was compensating with, I don't drink a whole lot of coffee now, but I was compensating when I was like, I remember being 13 and I'd be drinking a pot of coffee because it just took that speed and buzz effect, right?
So you're looking for that speed again?
Something like that. The coffee was trying to give me that, because there was an effect on Ritalin when you first got it. It was kind of like you felt kind of okay, you know, it was like cool. But then it's like any drug, it's like you're going to have more adverse effects than good effects, right?
Mm-hmm. So, wow, like you mentioned, like from 6 years old to, was it like 11 or 12?
11, I think it was.
So you take it, you can't focus.
Well, you can focus intently. The problem is you're focusing on your mind's you're not harnessing your thoughts. Your thoughts are taking you where they want you to go.
They're in the
so you don't have the control.
Yeah.
It's like there's a famous saying by a great musician named Ornette Coleman, who was a saxophone player. He's deceased now. He's long gone. But he said, is thinking, or is thinking to think? And if you think about that, it can make sense after a while. It's like, are you in control of your thoughts? Are you taking the reins of your mind? Are you using your mind, or is your mind, like everybody see today, their minds just go and nobody can reel their mind back in?
Mm-hmm.
Like a Buddhist saying would be, learn to harness the wild elephants of the delusional mind.
Yeah.
Because our thoughts, and we're not our minds either. We're not our minds. We're something beyond our minds. Our mind is our brain is a tool for us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to be used by the mind. We're supposed to use the mind.
Yeah.
And then when you get involved with all these things that we do in our society, like drugs and alcohol and everything else, smoking cigarettes, you're going to dictate a pattern of thought, right? So you're being led almost by the nose by these patterns.
I actually just read something this morning from the book The Surrender Experiment. I don't know if you ever read that book.
No.
I forget the author right now, but it was talking about basically this guy's experience with meditation. And when he really started doing it and really started feeling it, it was like he was talking about the voice in his head, which is basically just like your thoughts, like this uncontrollable that we all have, like the constant sort of chatter that's in your mind. And he was like, when you really felt the effects of meditation, it was like, instead of that voice being ahead of him and above him, and he was the person, you're the person watching them, you're just following.
Yeah.
When you really felt the meditation, it was like that voice was behind him,
right,
and above him.
Yeah.
So it's like being able to become present and to be in the reins, like you said, and be in control.
Yeah.
Like you're here and you're just watching your thoughts, instead of like a lot of people, like most people, I think, unless you actively practice it, which is, it's hard to do, but it's worth it unless you're actively practicing it. I think those, like, you're kind of led by that chatter and those thoughts. And, when you're 6 years old to 12 years old and you add in like stimulants on it, it must be impossible.
Even so much that I would hear, like, even I remember, like, because from kindergarten to grade 6, the school was right across the road. And from grade 7 to high school, I had to walk like 1.5 miles to school. And I remember, because I used to still always walk alone because everybody was at school while I was like getting there. I would hear voices in the back of my head, like mindless talk, like I'd hear Graeme. Like, oh, for God's sakes, like it was eerie, It's like, what the hell? And I'd have to learn not to, like, because you have to. I'm thinking I'm a freak, right? Not realizing that I'm being superimposed by this Ritalin, this freakishness, and I'm trying to act normal, like all my peers. Like, I gotta be like I can't let anybody know I'm my head case. I gotta be normal here, right?
Yeah.
And I felt nothing like a normal. Well, I didn't even. What the hell was a normal person to me? Like, this wasn't normal. But I had to act like everything was hunky dory, right? My emotions were blah 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 blah. It was nuts. And then the side effects later on, this is something I never found out until I found it out on my own, starting to read about it. And my mom saw a show one time, and I came home, and I was in my 20s, early 20s. I was working at Ford. I started working at Ford, I think, when I was 22. And she was all upset. She was crying, and I was like, "What's wrong, Mom?" She's, "Oh, I just watched this show on parents that lost their children, that had kids that were on Ritalin to suicide." And I was like, wow. And I'd already found out that Ritalin had led to the side effects of Ritalin never mind coming off the Ritalin and why you're on the Ritalin for such an extended period of time, were manic depression, psychotic behavior, and suicidal tendencies. So
Wow.
I had it all, but not knowing that this was just a byproduct. I just thought this is me, because nobody told me shit.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't know. I don't think the doctors informed them. They were just working class people. Nobody told them shit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I had a picture on my wall of my bedroom in Conte, because I was a musician. I also loved to paint and draw since I was young. And my buddy, we did this mural all in charcoal, and we sprayed it like Conte, and then we sprayed it so it didn't smudge. And it was this fantasy I had where I was sitting on this tree over by the highway, by the railroad tracks, and the highway went by and the overpass went. So I was going to sit on this tree, and I'm drinking a bottle of whiskey, and I got a noose around my neck. And the idea was sitting on a tree, drinking the whiskey at nighttime, so that when I got drunk, I'd fall and either snap my neck or strangle myself, and I'd be dangling for the people to see when they went over the overpass the next morning. So that was my statement. And I had this drawn on my wall in full size, this 8 by 10 wall or 8 by 12 wall. And then it had underneath it had like a sort of a picture of kind of like a Jesus type person with their hand waiting to catch me while I'm sitting on the tree drinking. I hadn't hung myself yet, but the rope was around my neck. And then it was my buddy had drawn all these other demons by this Jesus figure waiting also to catch me. So I had this wall, I had this which it was a really kind of, I wish I'd taken a picture of it, but I never thought about it. This is back way before cameras, cell phones and all that. But my parents seen it, they just thought, oh, look at the artwork. But nobody clued in that this is a kid screaming for help.
Right.
A 17, 18-year-old guy going, I want to die. And this is how I think I'm going to play it out.
Right.
So nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought that was kind of bizarre. And then when I told Mom, I said, yeah, Mom, it's true. And she was just so, she said she was just so grateful that she didn't know that it was that hard for the stuff I was going through mentally and emotionally.
Well, it's just crazy that, like you get prescribed this medication, and I know this happened to a lot of kids probably, and still does, like at such a young age, and it's supposed to help. And then there's like all these other, like, you're like, that's why you're taking meds. It's supposed to help with something, like, and then it has all these effects. So was it like attention deficit disorder? Is that what you, or was it like kind of like? They
called it, back then it was, I think it was more like hyperactivity. I was a hyperactive kid. And I was a kid probably with a lot of energy. But also then you got to think about, these are easy answers, Band-Aid easy answers. Like, you got to go back. As I got older, I started to get into nutrition and exercise. I mean, I was always very active, but and breathing. So nutrition and breathing. Half, I think, people's problems in their lives are, well, I think they're not conscientious of their breath. They're not doing deep breathing. They're not breathing in and out of their nose. They're always breathing in and out of their mouth more often than not. They're not mindful breathing, and they're not mindfully consuming their nutrition on a daily basis. They're just eating. Most people are eating fast food. Most people are eating crap.
Yeah.
So if you want to put, I always looked at it like we're not quite like mechanical like a vehicle, but if you put gas in your car that's watered down, your car is going to sputter and run like garbage. So if you're feeding yourself with no rest, anxiety because of your situation, and crappy food, you're going to have a bad mindset. And then if you're involved in drugs and alcohol and tobacco, chances are you're lost. Mm-hmm. You don't even know you're lost.
Yeah.
Right? And then if life starts to throw you some curveballs, which inevitably it does for most people one day, you don't have the strength you don't have a foundation. You can't even stand on your own 2 feet anymore. You're wobbling and shaking, and you're going to fall on your face. Yeah. And you know it. Yeah. All of a sudden. Mm-hmm. And you're not so confident anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this can happen to you. It can happen to you at any time. It can happen to you it's happened to me several times throughout my life, like where I've almost had I thought it was basically, is this the beginning of a nervous breakdown?
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I having, and then you don't want to have a nervous breakdown because you don't want to end up in the hospital. You don't want to end up in the clutches of, you want to be in control. So you have to like fight for that. And then, but you still might be clueless. But if you get these little bit of tools, like for instance, I practice breathing. I do a Wim Hof technique. Been doing it for the last couple of years. It's helped me immensely. I do a nitric oxide breathing, and I try to eat foods that stimulate nitric oxide, like beet juice, beets, arugula, spinach. There's certain foods that stimulate these breathing technique of humming, breathing in deep through my nose, holding, stimulating the vagus nerve, breathing out with a hum. There's all kinds of techniques. Cold water therapy, walking, meditation, sitting meditation. I studied Buddhism for quite some time, benefited wonderfully from that and the meditation, and just taking the time to be conscious of your breath and be mindful of just this and reeling in your mind. And when the thoughts are going by, just let them go and get back to your breath. And it's so important. You got to teach people how to breathe, teach people how to stand, teach people to have better posture. Like from the time when we're young, we could have this wonderful human race of considerate, compassionate beings all over the place, and it would be disregarding whatever their beliefs were. It wouldn't matter. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of a utopian thought, but it's not really that far-fetched.
I've often thought, getting the weeds here, but I've often thought so I was like a physical trainer before, like a personal trainer, and now I'm a behavior change coach, so I work more on like all aspects, like a holistic view of life, which is a big part of it is is mindfulness and mental health. And like I even thought, like when I work more specifically with like the physical side of things, like with kids, like there's so much you could teach kids early, like how to be, like you said, posture, and just how to like move and how to exercise more, and to exercise more instead of sitting down all day. Like even you saying like you were hyperactive when you were 6, it's like, man, like have you ever been around a 6-year-old boy? Like I used to work at a after school program. I thought about this a lot. Like, man, like they were active as shit, like, and they would get off the bus after school and just be like so much energy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because they just sat down all day.
Yeah.
But then, if there was a day like there was no school and they were with us all day, by like 2 or 3 o'clock, they're like, no, going to sleep, right? It's like, so there's clearly like, why would you take like a kid, which is like a puppy, basically? Yeah.
And just say, you got to stay there.
You got to sit right here.
All day. It's torture.
Good boy. It's torture for them.
And now imagine, now you've taken a kid, that you're already doing that to the normal kid.
Yeah.
And now you're taking a kid, pumping him up with this crazy Ritalin, and then expecting that person to go and sit. It was like, I was like, how am I going to get by tomorrow? How am I going to get by? And every weekend was great. I love Fridays and Saturdays, but Sundays I'd be like, oh, damn, it's going to be Monday again. It's like, and I learned to hate Mondays.
Yeah.
Right? I hated Mondays.
Yeah.
Right? I don't hate Mondays anymore. Mondays is good. I still like Fridays the best, but
yeah.
But no, it's kids got to move. Like my wife Nancy, she started her own school because she didn't like the education system, but the government's not going to fund that. She ended up working for peanuts, and she successfully did it, but she nearly had a collapse. Just she was exhausted, and I think. There's something to be desired about the way the current school system is going on in our society. I mean, there's so many things that have to change in order for us to move forward. But I think it's got to start, young, and it's got to start with conscientious nutrition, conscientious exercise, and breathing.
Yeah.
And then through that, the mind can really develop, and then you'd have this fantastic race of human beings.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah, and like just even like to my point there, so like I thought a lot about the physical, and then just like what the mental you said with breathing, but also just like mindfulness and teaching them how to like talk to themselves and communication.
Talk nicely to themselves.
Yeah.
I was talking to myself a lot, but they weren't nice things I was saying.
Yeah.
And then you get reinforced with people can learn to hate you too, and they'll reinforce what you're already thinking about yourself. I mean, I was in a relationship with a person, and I know she was ill in her own way, and she had her problems, and I empathize with that, especially looking back on it when I consider how her life came up. But I was afraid to the end of my relationship. I was afraid to say anything, because anything I said I'd be looked upon like, I felt like, well, I should have just kept my mouth shut. When I kept my mouth shut, there was something wrong. What's wrong? So I was like, oh my God, but I was in love with this person. I didn't know how to break free. And and to the point that when it finally, the cords were cut, I said, I'm never getting involved with another person again on that level. It's going to kill me. I might kill myself. I can't do it. And then I had resolved it. That's it. Nope, done. No more long-term relationships. Blah blah blah. If anything at all. And then I ended up meeting Nancy, and I thought, wow, there's nice, kind people that aren't mentally. Not that this other person didn't have a good, kind heart as well, but she was as mentally screwed up as I was. So two mentally screwed up people, you ain't going too far.
Yeah.
Right? You're not helping each other, even though you love each other. Mm-hmm. So at least this person I had was able to. I was able to have faith in people again, and realize that not everybody's all fucked up like me.
Yeah.
Or like the people that I've been with.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, because I mean, this lack of sleep thing, like I sleep like because of the Ritalin as well. Are we back on? Because of the Ritalin as well, I was starved for sleep. Like, every Saturday, I'd sleep in till like a kid sleeping in till 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock.
Yeah,
that's not normal for a kid.
No.
All my kids were buddies were outside playing, and I'd get up and I'd look out the window, and they'd be like, man, they've been doing this for hours. And I'd be like just ready to go down and watch some cartoons or something.
Yeah.
Right? I was just exhausted. And then it came to a point, now now in my life, I go to bed when I want, and I wake up when I want, because I don't start work until later in the day. So I don't have a time limit. I have to go to bed. Because I'm not, like when I used to lobster fish, I used to have to go to bed early. Well, I could never get to sleep. So I was always, but that was only for 10 weeks, so I could deal with it, right? I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. But rest, man, like I sleep so good now. It's like when I pass out, it's like, oh, and then I wake up, I'm like, okay, I don't want to get up. And I get up. So sleeping is like, it's so many people are being starved just from good rest.
Yeah.
And you can't function, that don't function good either.
Yeah.
We got a real sick society going on here.
There's a lot that goes into that too, with just even being on your phone right before bed, and I'm terrible for that. Like,
yeah.
And just being on your phone all day in general.
I'm hardly ever on my phone, because I'm not. I'm hardly, like, I use it for a tool. I'm hardly ever on the computer. I might go on YouTube to check out the UFC and stuff like that, or some interesting things that I might find, or I might have to learn a tune on the guitar for somebody, and then pass that along. But yeah, it's like I think you gotta definitely put your phone down, your computer off. You gotta go for a walk. You can't anticipate anybody calling you. You just gotta let it, And I think that's an important part of everybody's day. They've got to implement. And before you go to bed, like even like watching the TV, like I always try to. Well, I can't say I always do, no. But if I'm gonna lay down in bed, I won't sit with my computer. I would read a book. Mm-hmm. And when you start to read the paragraph a few times, you're like, okay, man, shut her down.
Yeah,
right?
I do that too. It's like you read the same paragraph like 4 times. Yeah. Like, I don't think this information is gonna go in. Time to go to sleep.
And then the next day, you're like, oh, I did read half that, but I don't remember now. I have to read that again.
Yeah.
But I mean, reading is a fantastic thing. It's so simple, right?
Yeah.
Or like, because I'm a musician, I'll think about my fretboard, my instrument, and I'll think about some scales or some chords, or put the 7th degree in a chord and go up the scale, and I'll be thinking this. So I'm doing a mental practice, and then the same thing, I'll be like, okay, I'm still on that chord G, and then I must be, the next thing I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And also, I remember I had this wonderful girlfriend when I was 18, and her name was Ninka, And she struggled a lot with mental health, and she tried suicide. I ended up in the hospital with her, trying to explain to her father that this is a lot more than she had her having a glass of wine, that she's in this hospital from slip trying to cut her wrists. And but Nick always said that she said, always remember, be in your nice cozy bed later tonight, and you'll be sleeping. And I always thought, and I didn't really understand it for a long time, because to me it was like, I don't want to go to bed because I can never get to sleep. But I'd have to basically go until I passed out, right? Like if you put me to bed, like I would never go stay at my aunt's, because they put in the summertime, the sky would still be bright and the kids would be in bed. I'd be like, Mom, I'm never going back to Aunt Margaret's to stay. She put me in bed at 9 o'clock. So, I had no time limit to go to bed, except on school nights. My time limit, I had to be in bed by 11:30. Now imagine 11:30 at 7 years old, right?
That's pretty late.
But that's my parents knew. I was going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So they let me stay up and watch the news with them.
Yeah.
And they would go to bed after. So after the news, the 11 o'clock news, 11:30, everybody went to bed. Right? And I still couldn't sleep for hours.
You were the night hawk. You were just
it's just like
still awake when
that stupid Ritalin. And I think also the Ritalin, because I was younger, I was exposed to a lot of drugs too where we lived. A lot of people became cocaine addicts, crackheads, opiate addicted, and even friends of mine, because I had Ritalin left over in jars. I hated it. They want the Ritalin so they could snort my Ritalin. And I'd give them the Ritalin and take the Ritalin, and they loved that Ritalin. And I think because of that Ritalin, in a weird way, I never got addicted to cocaine or crack. I tried it all, heroin. I tried it, and I did lots of it, but I could never get addicted. I was just like, nah, I don't know. And you always end up, but drinking, I liked drinking because drinking felt this immediate. And I always liked to smoke weed. I never liked smoking. I never smoked tobacco. The odd cigar, the odd time. But no, just weed and alcohol was my fix. And the alcohol. I can't say so much for the weed. The weed was okay. Weed didn't seem to be addictive. I can take that or leave that. I had to quit a few times over the years because I would get paranoid. So I was like, okay, the weed's making me paranoid. I'm not smoking weed no more. So I quit smoking. And then I've quit drinking off and on, but as I get older, I realize that the steady drinking is just, it's no fun. It's no fun. You just don't want to feel like shit every day.
Yeah.
I'm really getting into feeling mentally more on the ball and energetic, and physically. I've always been very blessed to be physically capable and to do more or less things I want to do, even though I've had lots of injuries. And I've always maintained a certain standard of health, of activity, and I want to keep doing that until I can't do it no more. So
right.
The absence of alcohol is a good thing.
Right. So after taking the Ritalin, getting kind of through like your teens, like you mentioned that you had tried some drugs. Where does it kind of, because it sounds like you've kind of had this shift where you got into the breathing and you got into like this more mindfulness practice. So was there a time where things really went down before you realized, okay, now I gotta start taking care of myself, I gotta start breathing, I gotta start doing that stuff?
There was a few times throughout my life where that shit, if I'd have known about the breathing, the thing was, once I started doing the Wim Hof and the breathing, I realized the breathing has always been a huge part of it, because as a musician, playing the pipes, you're breathing all the time.
So you went to bagpipe school, right, too?
Well, I got mentored by very good quality pipers, and then I got to join a competitive band, and I got to go play all over North America with the band, in Scotland and England, and it was great.
How old were you then when you were doing all that?
Let's say I was really active with the pipes from the time I was 11 till I was 18. And then... So
you were traveling all those places, 11, 18?
The first few years was just getting my act together, right? And then by the time I hit 14 and I got into this band, yeah, it was that everything was paid for, and I was at a level where I was a confident member of the band, and yeah, so I got to do a lot of traveling around. It never cost me any money. I didn't make money, but I got a lot of things carte blanche, like treated good, and yeah, it was a good time. But then again, I'm hanging around men, some guys my age, and that, but these guys drank. So I'm drinking with these guys when I'm like, 14, 15 years old. And you can't drink like a man at 14 or 15. You think you can, but you can't. So there was a lot of puking involved. And then that stupidity of alcohol, thinking I loved alcohol, thinking nothing wrong with alcohol. Plus being a Scotsman, my dad drank alcohol and my mom didn't drink. But yeah, so it's like alcohol was normal. I didn't think alcohol could be bad for you.
Yeah.
And then I found out, I got a lot of trouble with, violence, because I grew up in violent areas, and I had to, I did a lot of hanging around the wrong places and getting into bad fights and hurting people, getting hurt, and that was the norm,
Yeah.
You just thought, and I don't know, it was round and round and round and round. And then, of course, I never, even though I had suicide on my mind off and on throughout life, I never, ever gave it an attempt. I always thought I would. I thought what was in store for me. I thought, okay, these are the three things when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I thought, well, I'm either going to end up on the street. I could always busk. I thought, that's cool. So I would just have to be a panhandler. And I did busk for a while. Went out west and did some busking. And it was all right. I made a bit of money. Or I thought I'd be in jail. Or I thought I'd be dead or commit suicide. That was my scope of my future.
That was your vision for yourself at that age?
That was my vision for myself. Because life was so exhausting, and I just thought I didn't want to fit in. I had no desire to fit into the mold and do what everybody. I didn't want to have kids. I didn't want to do. But once I started making money, I knew I needed a place to live. So I bought a house. Smart enough to do that. Got a mortgage, bought a house.
So what were you doing to make money at that time?
Well, I had many jobs before, but then by the time I was in my early 20s, I got a job where my dad worked at Ford Motor Company. So that was my first taste of decent money. And because I used to not making any money, I was saving $1,000 a month without even the blink of an eye. Like, big deal. I still felt rich, even though I was saving $1,000 a month. I just had to take it right off my check and put it right in the credit union. So like $250 every check came off and went. So I was building up money. It wasn't a lot of money, and I was still footing the bill for my buddies that were artists and didn't have. I'd take them out to restaurants and so, it felt good playing. I was like the guy with the money for a period of time, right?
Right.
So that was cool, but I hated the job. The job was a nightmare. Lasted 8 years there, got out of that, did other things.
So I know we talked about that earlier too, with that being a nightmare. So was it just like assembly line kind of thing?
Yeah,
was that what it was like?
I was on the assembly line Ford, pumping the cars out from 1982 to 1990, I think it was. No, 80. What was it? 84 to 92.
So how does it work, by the way? I'm just interested, like, in terms of, like, do you have, like, a specific part of the car that you work on? Do you work on the whole thing, or?
No, it's like, so let's say a car comes by, and the car's going by, let's say, at a movement of about, so let's say Ford at that time in the 80s was putting out 77 cars an hour. So that means you're working on over a car a minute, right?
Holy fuck.
Right. And you're working all day long. There's no like, I think I'll take a little rest here and cut a tire. I'll do that in about 10 minutes. No, because if that car goes by you and you haven't done your part, next guy can't do his part. So that means the line stops and the foreman comes around, what the hell's going on? And he freaks out and he finds out it's you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And you gotta like have some excuse or something why you didn't do that car.
Yeah.
So you can't have that. You gotta, and you'll get fired. Well, the union's behind you, so it's hard to get fired. But yeah, so. No, you're working your arse off. Even if it's weird too, and you're always doing the same movement, so you get kind of burnt out. Your body gets burnt out, right?
Yeah.
Especially as you keep doing this for years and years.
Yeah. So did you have like a specific part of the car? Like everyone has a part and they all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those repetitive movements over and over again. That's repetitive injuries are very common.
Very
even
common.
In like other trades, but like especially that, like it's literally like,
carpal tunnel. I mean, I've got carpal tunnel in both hands, but that's also from being a musician. That's also from working at Ford. That's from lobster fishing, digging clams, all kinds of stuff like that. That's just happened. But I mean, I've learned to manage that too. So there's ways of, you can do things that heal yourself. Like we got amazing capacity to heal, but we got to, obviously, because we got amazing capacity to make ourselves sick.
Yeah.
We make ourselves sick all on our own.
Yeah.
With the help of advertising and the lures of, everything else out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about food. Look at all the ingredients in food that you don't need, that kids are consuming.
Yeah.
Right? We're all worried about our kids getting COVID and dying or cancer, but yet kids are eating Fruit Loops and Kool-Aid and garbage all the time.
I thought about that a lot. I think it's just I think it's literally just I think it's just a lack of awareness thing. I think people don't really understand it. And then it's like, if you think about like, it's kind of the same as everything too, even like politics and all that shit. It's like, you think about like your dad working at that job, like, so like people are busy as fuck and it's hard to.
Yeah, they don't have the energy to do all to say, hey, I got to go and talk to Trudeau about this stuff here,
Yeah, or even to do the research and look at like, or to really understand like nutrition and really understand like what's in Fruit Loops and what you should be eating. And there's even like, it's hard to sift through the information and just really understand it, right? Without putting some time into it. So like, I think people are just, and they're
overwhelmed.
There's food and it tastes good. And then I think that's as far as it goes. But, just to understand that, it does make a big impact. It can make you feel better, even if it's just like small changes.
Or even like, for instance, like a friend of mine, she used to give her kid, every time he had red dye, like in licorice or something, he would act like crazy.
Yeah.
And she couldn't figure it out. And then finally she realized, if I don't give him this red licorice stuff, he doesn't seem to act that way.
Yeah.
So there's just certain little triggers that can.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, kids go to school every day. They're not coming home for lunch because they get the bus there. But you go to Montague, you go to Charlottetown, any one of those schools that are near fast food joints, those kids are going for money. They're eating every day. They're eating burgers, fries, poutine, pizza, subs, pure crap every day when they're young.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I wasn't eating that crappy when we were growing up. Right?
Yeah.
It just wasn't there.
Yeah.
Fast food wasn't there. And what's the ingredients of fast food? Preservatives, garbage. Everything's garbage. It's not even real nutrition, is it?
No.
Just a filler for your gut.
That's all it is, yeah. I remember when I was in junior high, we used to go, I went to like Stone Park School for anyone in PEI, and we used to go to like, I remember for the longest time I went to Needs, and I used to save up my money for the weekend, right? So I'd spend like $2 on like a bag of Doritos.
And that would be your lunch.
And that'd be my lunch.
Yeah.
They were like...
And where's the fuel to think on a bag of burritos?
Yeah.
Right? Or Doritos.
Yeah.
A bag of burritos.
Or like, sometimes like...
See, at least down the States, the poor buggers could go to Taco Bell and get a bean taco. It's better than a bag of Doritos for $1. Bean taco for $1.
Yeah. Yeah, but...
They eat better down in Mexico than they eat up here in North America, for God's sakes, and they're poor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just
beans and rice.
Yeah.
The hot sauce, it's nice.
I think it's just like lack of awareness and just what's easy. It's what's in front of you and like time. Everyone's so busy. It's hard. It's like you can go through your whole life and just be busy all the time and not really think about what you're eating or what you're doing.
And then you're gonna burn out though.
Yeah.
Right. Or you might not even be burning out. You might be just what you call rusting.
Yeah. So
all of a sudden now you don't realize you're rusting. It's like an old car that you never undercoated with the rust check or whatever you put on it. And then the motor's running great, but then you put it up on the hoist and the mechanic says, she's done, boy.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean she's done? She's rotten.
Yeah.
Can we fix it? No.
Yeah.
So your body rusts away too then.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, your pancreas don't work no more. Why? Well, you've been eating crap for the last 30 years and you've got pancreatitis.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever. You got kidney problems, or you got diabetes, or you know.
It's always a cumulative.
Right? And then inflammation. Everything is like all these foods. They're not anti-inflammatories. They're inflammation. They cause inflammation.
Yeah.
And half our problem, from rheumatism to cancer, it's all around inflammation. Right?
Yeah.
And not proper breathing, not proper nutrition, not even remotely. Like, how many people walk? They walk to their car, or they walk to the bus. They don't go for any walk. You know, like walking is the what they used to say: a man who does not walk cannot think. All these things just help filter your brain.
100%. Yeah, like if you think about human history, and you got the book *Sapiens* over there. I read that one too. Like, all of human history, we walked everywhere, every day, all the time.
As hunters and gatherers, we were a fitter society.
Exactly. Yeah. Always moving. Always doing stuff.
And having to live by our, use our ingenuity and our intuition. Whereas now we don't. Intuition, is it real? Do we know what intuition is? Do we trust it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, our pineal gland's so clouded that intuition becomes irrelevant because we don't even acknowledge it, right? Because if we're open to seeing things with this brilliant thing inside our skull and this physiological fantasticness, if we were all, we're basically have the potential to be, like Nietzsche said, Overman, Superman. We all have this potential. Even if we're crippled, like you walk with a limp, people overcome all kinds of things. But you gotta have good circumstances. You gotta have the right situation. And that's not that hard either. It comes down to simple things. And since if you can implement these things in your life, I think then you're more equipped to deal with life in a positive way, where you're feeling not overwhelmed by your life, you're feeling good about your life. You're saying, hey, this is a good life. And when you have a good life, you're able to shine something good to other people and maybe even give them confidence, right? Especially if it's not an overblown confidence because your ego's so huge and you're so successful. Not that type of thing. That's an illusion. Like when people look at people on the TV or on these people that, these big, that could be detrimental, because people think, well, I could get that too. Well, no, you might not get that, but you can have the simple basic things of feeling good every day, having a healthy shell to walk around in.
The reason I feel optimistic, I think, now is just because of the internet. Information, right? You can, and there's like this big turn, I think, of people being more mindful in general.
Yeah.
And
mindful about themselves and about others.
Yeah.
Right. And about acknowledging this earth that we live on as a being. That has to be that we should be helping, and everything that's involved in it. Right. We're part of this whole thing, and we all have a responsibility to be conscientious of that fact and try and make our lives geared so that maybe we're doing something good and not thinking we're always being a problem. I think a lot of people think too. A lot of young people think, oh, I'm just a problem. Human beings were just a problem. I always thought I was a problem. That's one reason I didn't want to have kids. I was like, I'm not bringing any more of these things into this world. We don't need any more of these, right? Meaning who I am as a human being,
right?
But being a human being can be a beautiful thing too, right? We have so much great potential.
Yeah, I think. You okay? Yeah, I think.
Good reflexes, man.
I think there's tremendous beauty in humans. I think. I think it really inspires me, like what humans can create, you know, and to think like, I mean, this may be just like an abstract thought, but like, if one human wasn't here, like, maybe you just think of like, I know you're a musician, I like music too. Like, if you think about like the lead singer of Queen, like if that guy wasn't born, like there's that music and then all the people that he affected, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and then he was tragically taken from us. He is so much inspired, and but you know, it's a sad thing, but the beauty that was left by Freddie Mercury or Jimi Hendrix, these wonderful people that only got to stick around for a little while and split off the planet too early. But there's and to think of how many, and of course these people were exceptional, but you just like you just have to be grateful. Like that I'm grateful that I got to hear like Billie Holiday. That she was on the planet. She shared the planet like I'm sharing the planet.
Yeah.
I'm sharing the planet just like these great beings shared the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if I can't attain that achievement of their brilliance, I can still get glimpses of it. I still get fulfilled by it. Even if I, like I've been trying to play like Jimi Hendrix since I started playing guitar. And I can do a lot of wonderful Jimi Hendrix music and I love it. But I also evolved a technique that's me. It's not Jimi Hendrix, right? So that's something you discover through learning the excellence of someone and committing to try and getting to that level if you can. It takes a lot of time. And then something else spawns out of it that becomes unique to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody has that potential. It's just that the thing is, reality is what people don't understand is if you're going to do something to a high level, you have to put a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's more like I get kids coming to lessons and, you know, you try to encourage them to play a half an hour a day. But when I was playing pipes to get at the competitive level, no one told me to practice. I wanted to play. And I was playing 3, 4, 5 hours a day between my practicing on pipes. When I started playing guitar, 3 to 4, 5, 6 hours a day was spent on my instrument.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, playing it. That's a lot of time. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't have the luxury of that time either.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're going to be Olympian, you're at it all the time, right?
I think a lot of, especially with phones now, I think a lot of society is kind of stuck in like instant gratification. Especially with phones, like you can Google anything. Like it's awesome. You can Google anything.
Yeah.
You can get the information, but it's also like,
how do you apply it though?
Yeah.
And this is where you have to get back to mindfulness and meditation, because that's what is the balance for this problem we have right now with lack of patience, fulfillment, instant gratification, the dopamine that goes off in your brain.
Yeah.
From all these, and then the letdown.
Yeah.
It's not as great as you know. So once you get back to the simpler things, then you say, hey, okay, you know what? You're reeling your mind back in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you realize there's an alternative to this stuff. So you're not just left with this is your only thing.
Yeah.
And then you're lost.
Yeah, it's like that dopamine feedback loop of looking at your phone and there's a notification on social media or like, just instantly going to YouTube, instantly going to Netflix, instant entertainment.
And imagine your parents now, let's say your parents have given you one of these things when you were like 3. And you're already better at with your parents at it by the time you're 5.
Yeah.
Right? And this is something that's become natural.
Yeah.
You're all thumbs now.
Yeah.
Right? What happened to these digits, right? What happened to this communication? There's a problem with that too. It's like this wonderful thing, the tool of the internet, but at the same time, as a way of life, it's no good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and how it affects like mental health and how it affects.
And just the fact, if you're not moving, we're meant to move.
Mm-hmm.
We're not meant to stagnate and sit on our asses all day.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're feeling bummed out and you're thinking, gee, I don't want to do nothing. Well, if you just got up, did a little experiment with yourself, say, okay, you know what? I got to stop this right now. I'm going to get up, put on my shoes, put on a coat, go for a walk. I'm going to just go for a nice little brisk walk and let all my cares go away and see how I feel when I come back. Guarantee when you come back, you're going to feel more energetic. You're going to feel, and all you did was get up and go for a walk, right?
Yeah.
You know, or try to say, okay, I'm not going to eat a bag of chips. I'm going to make myself a decent little lunch. You make yourself something. Be a little creative. Make yourself something that tastes good. Have fun cooking it. Do your dishes afterwards. Keep the place clean. Like, people get, all of a sudden their places get messy and they're like, well, I can't clean it. I don't know what I'm going to do. And they're overwhelmed by the mess they made. And that all you had to do was just clean up a little bit every day and there is no mess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, do your dishes, you know, don't let them pile up, right? Don't, just because you're used to fast food, now you don't even know how to do dishes. Or you don't know how to boil water.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You eat your Mr. Noodles dry because you don't know how to boil water. Anyway, no, I don't know, man. It's this. You could go like, I am by no means a. I'd say I'm a survivor, and I'm not. I would not. I would tell people, do not live a life the way I did, because of the self-abuse I put myself through. But at the same time, the tools that I've discovered that have helped me, I'm glad to pass that information along. And I'm also glad to say, even though I might sound hypocritical, if I say to somebody, like I tell young people, say, hey man, do not get involved in alcohol. Don't go drinking. Like, don't get even I did it, and I still have done it. And it's only been a few weeks now that I haven't been doing it. 3 weeks that I haven't been doing it, but and I've done it like that before. I've taken time off, but the fact is, I've still went down that road. And knowing it's not good for me, and still keep going down that road. You have the ability to persuade your mind even more than someone has the ability to persuade your mind.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's hard to trust other people when you can barely trust yourself. You have to prove yourself. Like, if you're going to say you're going to do something and you don't do it, well, how can you expect someone else to say to you they're going to do something and you feel like, you said you're going to do it, you didn't do it? Well, how many times do you let yourself down?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, well, what would you expect from other people? They're letting themselves down too. You're second to them. But then some people might be like, I can let myself down, but I can't let someone else down. There's that too, right? And that's a problem. Why is it so easy to let yourself down, but you can't let other people down?
It comes to...
Right? So there's all these neuroses that people develop because of this delusional mind is thinking, or is thinking to think. These things, people got to get a handle on it. And it might take a whole lifetime. Look, it's taken me till I'm 60, till I'm finally starting to say, hey man, you're kind of wrong here. You got to smarten the fuck up. You got to get your shit together. You can do this, not someone else. You've got to do this now, right? This is your health that's going to last you for the next, maybe till I'm 90, right? Do I want to feel like this till I'm 90, or do I want to feel like this, hopefully, till I'm 90? You got the choice.
Right?
Yeah. If you, like, I remember for a time period, I was taking before I found out about breathing, I was taking Tums. Like, I was pretty well living off Tums. I was taking Tums, like I couldn't go anywhere without some Tums because I was getting acid indigestion, right? Change a few things, do the breathing, no acid indigestion. Because also when you do the Wim Hof breathing and you do the nitric oxide breathing, you alkaline your blood, right? You take the acidicness away.
Right.
So you're alkalining, you're rebooting your brain, you're doing all kinds of things. This Wim Hof guy is, you know his history, right? You know how he got involved in it?
He lost his wife.
Yeah,
right?
she was on some kind of prescription drugs. He had like 3 or 4 kids. She kissed her kids goodbye, put on her shoes, and jumped out the 8-story window, just like that. And he was left to have to look into these kids, and he didn't know how he was going to go on. And you remember the cold water techniques when he was a young person, how it helped him, and then he started getting into this breathing. And it's a scientific fact how it works. It's in the science journals of America, right? So he's proven it scientifically. Yeah. He's proven it in the Guinness World Book of Records with records that he's broken. So it's not unique to him. It can be done by anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all you have to do is employ the technique, and it takes just minutes. Maybe take like minutes a day.
Yeah, for anyone listening, like I think you can do like the beginner Wim Hof method. Find them on YouTube.
Yeah, it's got the app there.
So when did you become a musician? I mean, I know that so you worked there for 8 years, and then.
Well, I remember the day. I always wanted to be a musician. My father was. He always sang kind of like he was writing a Nat King Cole, and I was in a Nat King Cole when I was 6 years old. I used to think I sounded like Nat King Cole when I was 6 years old. How does a person at 6 years old sound like Nat King Cole, right?
Yeah.
Full of cigarettes and scotch and smoky boy. Anyways, my dad could kind of emulate that. So I was always, and then my parents bought me guitars when I was a kid. Like, I think I got my first one when I was about 4, and then I got consecutively. I got one when I was like 6, and then maybe 7 or 8. But I smashed them all because the strings would break, and my parents didn't think they thought I was breaking them. We know the strings break on a guitar, so then I'd be left with one string, and then no strings, and I'd smash the guitar. So my dad said, "No more guitars, very heavy, just smashing them up." So anyways, music became a pipe dream. So I was always this artist drawer, and I used to draw horses. Books how to draw dogs, how to draw faces, how to draw landscapes, how to paint, blah, blah, blah. So I got into that. But then one day my cousins were giving a recital on the practice chanter. My 2 cousins that played bagpipes. And my other cousins, the girls would Highland dance. So my dad used to play the practice chanter, but he never graduated to the pipes. He loved the pipes. And so anyways, one day after we're sitting there and we'd had supper, and my 2 cousins had played this little bit for the family, and out of my mouth came, not conscientious if anybody listening, was, "Oh, I wish I could do that." My Uncle Alec was sitting right beside me. He says, "Would you, do you, son?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Right, I'll pick you up on Wednesday. You could come with Alec to lessons where he goes." That was it. It was just that those words I uttered, and he picked up on it. And he took me, my Uncle Alec brought me to lessons because my dad worked shift work. And then my dad would take me when he wasn't on afternoons. And that was the catalyst. And then I surpassed my cousins within a year of me playing. I was better than my cousins that have been playing for years because they were half-assed, whereas I was 100%. And
that was right from the get-go. You were 100%.
Right from the get-go. And I was the same way when I was like, if I had, I was in high school. I was a champion gymnast for the rings and the high bar. So I had that discipline with music and a discipline with gymnastics. So I knew the ingredient was discipline and to do it and execute the moves and learn them. So I had that, even though I wasn't really maybe conscientious of knowing that super secret ingredient that, you can have all the motivation you want, but if you don't apply discipline to it, it just goes out the window, right?
Do you think you got that from the gymnastics, or where do you think you got that?
I think I got it from the will to, like, same thing with drawing. I became a good drawer. I would draw for hours, right? I just, somehow I had this will to persevere and to keep, I wasn't a natural at any of these. I wasn't really like, I had to really, really make an effort to get good.
Yeah.
But I realized later that, of course, then when I was 18, I always wanted to play electric guitar. I used to play amazing air guitar to records. I'd be like, I could play the bagpipes and I could read music, but I had no idea how to play the guitar. The guitar was this huge mystery to me. It's like, how do they do that? So anyways, I said, you know what? If I learned how to play the bagpipes, I'd already went to Scotland. The band got 6th in the world. We're North American champions. I was at this high level, and I said, and I could have got higher. I could have become a solo piper champion of that, but I got a little less interested in the piping world, the politics of bagpiping. So I kind of got turned off that, and I just got into the guitar. Took some lessons on the guitar. Then within a year, I had a band, and we were out playing parties.
That's like something that like only a small number of people can say, like the politics of bagpiping.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like such a niche.
Yeah.
Jargon.
Yeah. So then the guitar overtook my life, and and it's been that way. I mean, one of the reasons why I bought a house wasn't just to live in a place, because I knew I'd have to either rent or buy, so I thought buying makes sense, was because I needed a place to jam.
Yeah.
Right? So the first house I bought didn't have a basement, so we jammed in the attic, but the noise went everywhere. So the cops were at my house every weekend for like a long time. So then I bought another house with great big, huge downtown. I was on the Hamilton Mountain, and I went down the mountain, and I bought this old, this Victorian style brick home with walls in the basement that were like 1.5 feet thick, and nobody could hear nothing down there. So I could jam all the time. So basically, I was always geared, like even this room that we're in right now, this became a music room. I've always had more or less, well, I've always wanted to have a music room.
Yeah.
And there was a few times where I had it, and then I haven't had it for years since I came to the island. I haven't had one, and now I got one again. And my wife is a musician and an educator, and so she's at it, like she applied the same discipline. She had that too. She was young, but that we have that in common, even though we play a lot of completely different styles. And she always wanted a music room too, so we're on the same page as that. So this is our music room, and so it's all coming together, and it's just hope to keep working at the health and keep playing music. It grows stronger. The will to play just keeps growing stronger as you learn more and more, and it becomes, you realize how these things you put yourself towards, they become intimate with your life, and they become friends. So they're supports. It's a support for your existence.
Yeah.
It's a sanctuary. Just like, and then of course I got into the breathing and the meditation, and through music. Music is a form of mindful, meditative concentration.
Yeah.
Because you can't advance at anything that takes that kind of technique unless you're really, really mindfully concentrating on it. So meditative concentration is a huge part of becoming accomplished at anything.
Yeah.
Right? So when kids are going to school and they're just putting in time and they're getting bored, the lessons aren't, and they're being fed information, it's not really means it much to them. These kids they're not appreciating the potential of applying themselves because they're burnt out and they're bored of it. So then they don't get good at nothing.
They're bored of the information, right?
They're bored. It's the curriculum sucks.
Like if someone gave you a guitar when you were 6, or and like
it taught me a few things, right?
It would be much different, right?
I'd have been playing since I was 6. So my dad actually literally didn't have any. My dad thought, because of the riddle, I actually think my dad thought I was stupid. I think my dad kind of lost faith in me and thought, this kid's, because I remember he'd say stuff like to my mom, "Oh, the boy's no right, Anna." Right? Yeah. And he was right. I wasn't right. I was on Ritalin.
So he was Scottish, right?
Yeah, Scottish. So I was born there too, in Scotland, right?
Oh yeah.
And so when I became this piper, and all of a sudden I'm blowing my cousins away, and I'm competing now, and all of a sudden the old man's like, "Holy jeez, he's not dumb at all.
Yeah.
He's smart." Like I never knew he had that in him. So all of a sudden the old man had reinvented his faith in me.
Yeah. Because
I think he was losing it with me, and I was his first. And I wanted to get into fighting. They used to take me around when I was really young, 4 years old, before I knew I needed glasses. The same year I got Ritalin, they gave me glasses. And I felt, so I'm on Ritalin on screen, and I got glasses. I'm like, whoa! I was 6 years old.
You can see everything.
Yeah. So anyways, I wanted to fight, right? Because I was this good little fighter. Then I said, "Okay, Dad, I want a box. Get me the box." And my old man says one word. He says, "Son, you can't see." And that was all he had to say to me. And I was like, "Damn, I can't see." I mean, because I'm going to get hit too much, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't fight, you can't see.
Yeah.
So that took that dream, because I would have been. I became a good street fighter. If I had been a trained fighter, I would have been an amazing fighter, because I was an amazing street fighter. I used to blow my own mind how good at fighting I was. And half the time it's because I was scared of living shit that I was going to get my ass kicked.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I became this exceptionally gifted, talented fighter. To the point where I started to have quite a bit. I used to go hunt down the bullies that bullied me. and scare the living shit out of them and love it, but that wasn't a good thing to do either.
Yeah.
But then also violence got me into trouble.
Right.
What took me to jail, got me a criminal record.
Yeah.
And then I honestly thought I might end up killing somebody. So I basically stopped going. The only time I would go to bars later on in life is when I was playing music.
Yeah.
I'll stay out of trouble if I'm playing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never picked fights though.
The violence, the road of violence, street fighting.
Yeah. And back in those times, in the 70s.
People were doing it more then, right?
Well, there was no recording on video. Like you could kick the shit out of somebody and no one knew it was you.
Walk off.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless, you had witnesses, right?
Yeah.
So times were different. Times were angry times, man. They were bad times. So, and if you're a skinny kid that wore glasses, you were picked on.
Easy target.
Easy target. Yeah, man. No, so the music's been a lifesaver. This breathing technique, I think people could really, really get into. I'm not saying I don't like to promote Wim Hof. I don't want to be I'm a converter of people to do anything, but I would say consider your nutrition, consider your activity, consider getting proper rest, and consider mindful thinking and mindful breathing.
Yeah. And
take up something that involves meditative concentration. A task I don't know, maybe even if it's doing puzzles or something.
Yeah. I was talking to someone yesterday. They were telling me about they do adult coloring books, and that really helps them. Yeah,
Nancy just got this beautiful coloring book, an adult coloring book, and she was going to give it to somebody, but she couldn't think of anybody to give it to. She said, "No, I'll just do it myself."
Yeah.
So, and then you end up doing all these bright colors, and then you got a nice little piece. I don't know. I just think that people have a great potential in this day and age. And it's always been, I think, but I think people were more resilient of yesteryear. Like my parents were very resilient people. They grew up as kids in World War II. They were born in 36 and 37. So they had a hard life, and they're very appreciative and grateful for what they've achieved and what they've had. And things weren't all just given to them. And they weren't told that they had no idea they would even be successful.
Yeah.
So, and now they're 85 years old. I mean, their health is waning a bit, but they're still living in their own place together and they're still married. And I feel grateful for that. It's the sad part right now is at this COVID times, I just can't go and see them,
Yeah.
But I think I think our society with young people really need a lot of help. I think, Matt, doing this type of thing, if people can tap into it and, listen from other people's experiences. Like the first time I tried to commit suicide, I finally gave it an attempt and I was so happy. I was like, I'm finally doing this. I I had a fight with my girlfriend at the time, this tumultuous relationship. I went up to my cabin in the woods. I had a piece of black hose. I didn't know I was going to commit suicide, but I seen the black hose. I said, fitted it on the exhaust pipe, put it in the car, up by my cabin, way back off the road. I thought, no one's going to find me for a long time. That'll be great. I'll be dead by then. Put on Frank Zappa, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar. It was an auto reverse tape. So I was in there 45 minutes and it reversed. Got the other 45. So I was in there and then it reversed again. So I was in there for over 90 minutes with this carbon monoxide going into my car. Had a bottle of wine, red wine, and 2 fat marijuana joints. And I'm sitting in my car and I was like, finally, I'm checking out, man. And I was happy. I was like, I'm done with this. This is great. And I was drinking, smoking, and Frank Zappa, next thing flips again. So I'm going on over 90 minutes. And I'm like, I'm not dead yet. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? I should be dead now. I should be at least passed out, right? So I said...
It's a funny thought to have really stoned too.
Yeah, I was stoned and drunk and I'd already been drinking before.
Yeah.
So I wasn't giving much thought to the aftermath, right? So anyways, I got bored. I couldn't sit there any longer. I couldn't listen to any more Frank Zappa, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar. So I turned off the key, said, that didn't work. Went into my cabin, passed out for over 12 hours. So I must have got some carbon monoxide poisoning. But I left everything the way it was. I had the sense. I put the hose back in the car when I shut the door. So the first thing I wanted to see, I guess, was that. So when I woke up, I looked out my window and I see the hose in the car with the cars there by the cabin. And that's when it hit me. I thought about my mom and my dad. I thought what they would think, how tragic it would be for them. And I thought, that's so selfish, man. Like, what was I thinking? And I wasn't going to tell my girlfriend at the time anything about it because, right? I just thought, let's not do that again. So I quit drinking coffee. I didn't trust myself with coffee. I quit smoking marijuana. I quit drinking alcohol. Right then and there that day, I said, I'm not safe with myself when I'm on that shit. So I'm not doing it. I don't want to give myself anxiety. I got to stay calm. Got to get collected. So anyways, when I went back to her place after we'd calmed down from our bullshit, and she was still obviously a little upset with me. First thing I get in when I went down on the Monday or the Tuesday when I went back to her place, she only lived 1.5 kilometers down the road because we had another place down there with 10 acres of woods. And so I went down there at her place. And she said, first thing she says to me, she said, so did you have fun with your little girlfriends up in your shack? And she always thought I was messing around her. I never, ever had a fool around on her and the whole time I was with her. But she met me when I was leaving a relationship and I hadn't quite got out of it. So she figures that, well, if I fooled around on that last one, but meanwhile, our relationship was done. And anyway, so she had no reason to say that, but she said it. And then on my mouth, I said, you want to know what I did? And then I told her what I did. And then her reply to me was, you're a fucking asshole. And I said to her, I said, yeah, that's exactly what I thought you would say. That's why I wasn't going to bother telling you. And then that was that. And then basically our relationship was like, and it still lasted a little while longer, but that was done. So I even though I've thought about it, that was the only time I gave it a serious run. And even now when I think about it, like when I told you about that time down there when I was drinking too much, and if I thought that if I had a gun, I would have shot myself. When things are going so great, just because of too much fucking drinking. I'm not sure I wouldn't commit suicide. I don't think I would if I was in this frame of mind. Maybe if I was drinking too much, yeah, I could be vulnerable to it. But I think, and you can never say never, because you don't know, and nobody knows 100%, but I feel like I'm in a place where I don't want to do that. I don't want to put people that I love and know and have known me, and I don't want to give the message. I'm not saying that people that commit suicide are weak, because they're not. It takes a lot of courage to commit suicide, and you got to be in a real bad state of something to go there, especially to follow it through. And I have had more than my share of friends that have taken their lives. And it's always this real bizarre mystery when someone that you've known has taken their life, because there's some unresolved thing. It's not like another kind of a death. So I don't want to do that to anybody, and I don't want to do it to myself. And then I think if I had done that, that was when I was 47 years old, and I'm 60 now, I would have never experienced all the wonder and this stuff, this relationship I'm in. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. None of this would be happening. And it would never have come about because that time would have stopped, right?
Yeah.
So that's the sad thing. It's this finality. It's like, and it's easier said too. It's like a friend said to Charlie Chaplin, I think I'm done. I'm checking out. And Charlie Chaplin's reply was, what's your rush? Life is like a wink of an eye. We're going down. The sun ain't going down slow. When the sun starts to go down, it goes down, right? It's nice high in the sky. When she goes down, you can watch it disappear to the horizon, right? So you know the sun ain't going down slow. So if I could say anything to anybody to help them along, I'd say, yeah, think about your mindfulness, think about gratitude, think about your nutrition, think about your breathing, and talk to somebody, even if you don't know them. Get a helpline. Sometimes it's easier to talk to somebody you don't know, and seek out information about how you can get help and help yourself. And don't feel like you're a weirdo because you got these thoughts. it's a rough world, but there's a lot of goodness, and there's a lot of love to be shared, and it's worth it to hang in there. That would be my thing I would like to say to people.
Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Hey, Matt, pleasure. It's great to see you again.
I want to say quickly before we end, just to your point, like, you know, if that went different when you were 47, you wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast was, I don't know if you remember this, but it was like around Christmas, like maybe 3-4 years ago. You told me that. You told me that story. It was randomly, I had to stay in there. I was just getting food. Turned out like it was going to take a while. You're sitting there. You remembered that I took lessons. We had a conversation. It led to that. You told me that. And I was in a terrible mind state. That had just happened a couple of years before, where I lost my girlfriend to suicide. Yeah. I was in a terrible place. And it's like, what are the chances of me going there and then sitting down with you and then having that conversation? And it was like, I sat down with you. And you just told me like a lot of stuff. I didn't talk much. And I was just like, I feel so much better than when I walked in.
Wow. And I never quite knew that. You telling me that now. And then, isn't that funny? And I mean, you always, whenever I knew you in the past, you always seemed like a very reserved. You seemed a little confused, but it seemed like you're trying to get your shit together. But you were very kind of quiet, and you didn't. I felt like you didn't quite know where you were headed. Yeah. But you were young. Everybody's like that, right? Yeah. And maybe I was just trying to, because I don't remember you never told me anything about the suicide.
Yeah.
I've only learned that just now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it is funny, like sometimes you don't even know you're helping somebody by your stories, right? Mm. But the main thing is they're true. They're heart. They're real stories. They're from experience.
Yeah.
There's no fabrication. There's no making up of anything grandiose. Like I would tell Nancy a ton of stories about my life in Hamilton, and she would say to me, she knew I wasn't right, but she's like, it's just, I can't. She told me later, she goes, I just couldn't see how. Then we went to Hamilton, and then she'd meet these people, and they'd reiterate, and she'd say, it's just like he told the story, but someone else is telling it, repeating, and he's like, holy shit, he's telling. And I had no way of rehearsing these stories. Yeah. But they're so bizarre and far-fetched that you honestly believe that they couldn't be real. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, you never know. And so many things like that have happened to me, like near-death experiences, things like that, where it's like, I just shouldn't be here. Yeah. Right? And then to me, you wonder, why am I here? Well, you know what? I'm not wondering why I'm here anymore. I'm justifying my own existence by my life. But I've done some damage to people and probably fucked people over in ways that I probably have regretted. I have regretted, but at the same time, I think I've always tried to just, if I can help, that's great. You know, I mean, even if the damage shit I've done for people that have been close to me, I think if you reflected upon it, I think I've helped them more than I've fucked them over. Right. Right. And my intention was never to fuck anybody over. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that some people get fucked over. Right. You know, I get fucked over too. Anyway, thanks, Bailey.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. That's her.